New Earth City glowed like a star caught in perpetual twilight. Skyscrapers stretched to the heavens, their facades alive with a riot of colors and shimmering holograms that danced across the skyline. On the surface, the city was a dazzling testament to human and alien cooperation, a high-tech, vibrant metropolis where different species mingled seamlessly. But beneath this glittering exterior lay the heart of galactic diplomacy, where the fate of interstellar relations was often decided. Dr. Leo Armstrong stood at the threshold of the Galactic Council's Grand Hall, the echo of his polished shoes against the marble floor muted by the ambient hum of the city beyond. The room was a marvel of futuristic design, translucent walls that displayed real-time views of New Earth's bustling streets. And a ceiling that shimmered like a starfield. Today, Leo was not just a scientist, he was a bridge between worlds. His task was monumental. He was to meet Liranavia, the esteemed ambassador of the Aranai, a species as enigmatic as they were revered. The Aranai were known for their beauty and their philosophical wisdom, their scales glinting with hues that shifted like liquid moonlight. As Leo waited, he couldn't help but reflect on the enormity of this meeting. The Aranai had been a key player in the Galactic Council for centuries, their perspectives shaping major decisions. Today's handshake was more than ceremonial, it was a crucial step in fostering a deeper alliance. The doors to the Grand Hall opened. And Liranavia glided in, her presence as fluid and graceful as her name suggested. Her scales reflected the light in shifting patterns of sapphire and silver, creating a mesmerizing display. She was flanked by her retinue, a subtle hint of otherworldly grace and authority. Leo extended his hand, a gesture of peace and respect. Liranavia's gaze, though inscrutable, held a hint of curiosity as she accepted the handshake. The contact was brief, but in that moment, an electric charm. But as the session progressed, an unease began to creep into Leo's consciousness. Liranavia seemed unusually distracted, her composure wavering. Her once fluid movements became stilted, and her eyes, which had been so serene, now darted nervously. It wasn't long before the reason for her discomfort became apparent. Liranavia's aide, a tall figure with a shimmering aura, whispered urgently in her ear. The ambassador's scales took on a deeper, more iridescent hue, signaling a physiological change that was both fascinating and alarming. Leo's heart skipped a beat as he observed the scene unfolding before him. Liranavia's condition began to alter, her elegant poise giving way to signs of acute biological distress. The Aranai were known for their complex reproductive processes, but this was beyond anything Leo had anticipated. As the realization sank in, an aide approached Leo with a data pad. The message was clear, this was no ordinary diplomatic gesture. The handshake had triggered an ancient Aranai reproductive mechanism, an event so rare it was considered almost mythical. The implications were staggering. Liranavia was pregnant with a child that would be both Aranai and human. Leo's mind raced. The meeting, meant to strengthen ties, had inadvertently sparked a diplomatic and biological anomaly. He glanced at Liranavia, who now stood surrounded by her aides, her expression a mix of worry and resignation. The gravity of the situation settled heavily on Leo's shoulders. This was no longer just a diplomatic incident, it was a profound, uncharted intersection of species and cultures. The hall's opulent decor seemed to fade as the weight of the moment took center stage. Leo's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden commotion as the Galactic Council's emergency protocols were activated. His communicator buzzed with an urgent summons. As Leo rose from his seat, the room's grandeur felt suddenly oppressive. The story of the handshake was only beginning, and its ripples would soon reach far beyond the polished marble of the council chamber. The fate of interspecies relations and his own future now hung in the balance, and the path forward was anything but clear. Chapter 2, Shockwaves and Reactions. New Earth City was alive with energy, but today the buzz was different, charged with an undercurrent of tension and speculation. From the towering spires of the metropolis to the neon-lit streets below, the news of the Aranai ambassador's unprecedented pregnancy had set the city abuzz. Dr. Leo Armstrong sat in his high-rise apartment. Its panoramic windows offering a stark contrast between the serene view and the chaotic storm of his thoughts. The room was cluttered with data pads and scientific journals, remnants of his previous life as a researcher. Today, those tools felt inadequate, overshadowed by the gravity of the situation. The door chimed, and Leo's assistant, Jax, entered, his expression a mixture of concern and professionalism. "Dr. Armstrong, you're needed at the Galactic Council for a briefing. The situation is escalating." Leo nodded, his mind already racing through the implications. As he arrived at the council headquarters, the building's typically stately entrance seemed almost ominous. The hallways, usually bustling with activity, now felt eerily quiet, their usual efficiency replaced by a palpable sense of urgency. Inside the council chamber, representatives from various species were engaged in heated discussions. The usual decorum of diplomatic meetings had given way to a frenetic energy. Alien delegates, with their myriad forms and colors, were debating the unprecedented event with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. Leo took his seat, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. The chamber's ceiling, adorned with holographic constellations, now felt like an indifferent observer to the unfolding drama. Lyranavia stood at the podium, her usual grace replaced by an air of subdued dignity. Her scales, which had once shimmered with calm assurance, now reflected a deep, troubled hue. Beside her, her aide, an imposing figure with a resplendent aura, stood in silence, as if bracing for the inevitable storm. Leo's mind whirred as he tried to make sense of the situation. The handshake that had led to this was a gesture of peace, a symbol of unity between species. Yet it had triggered an ancient and rare biological process in Lyranavia. According to the data he'd received, this wasn't merely an anomaly, it was a deeply significant event in Aranite culture. A sign of extraordinary interspecies bond. The council's president, a tall being with translucent skin and eyes that seemed to see through the very fabric of reality, called the session to order. "We must address the implications of this event," he intoned, his voice resonating through the chamber. "This is not merely a diplomatic issue but a profound cultural intersection." A series of holographic projections flickered to life, displaying data on RNA reproductive processes, interspecies genetics, and diplomatic protocols. The visual aids, while informative, did little to ease the tension in the room. Delegates from various planets took turns voicing their concerns. The Vortari, known for their analytical minds, worried about the genetic consequences and the potential disruption to established interspecies relations. The Nixians, with their empathetic nature, viewed the situation as an opportunity for greater understanding but feared the personal ramifications for both Leo and Lyranavia. Leo's communicator buzzed with messages from news outlets, public forums, and even personal contacts. The media's frenzy had reached new heights, each outlet spinning the story in its own sensational direction. The headlines ranged from galactic crisis, ambassador's child to unexpected union, a new era of diplomacy. The flood of information was overwhelming, but it was clear that public opinion was deeply divided. In the midst of the chaos, Leo received a brief respite as he was called to Lyranavia's side. Her eyes, though troubled, held a flicker of gratitude. "Dr. Armstrong," she said softly, her voice barely audible over the din, "this is not what I anticipated. The Aranite hold this event in reverence, but its implications are far-reaching." Leo nodded, his resolve hardening. "We need to find a way to navigate this together. This isn't just about us, it's about forging a path forward that respects both our cultures." As the session continued, Leo's plea for understanding echoed through the chamber. He spoke with heartfelt conviction about the need for compassion and unity, urging the council to consider the broader implications of their decisions. The debate raged on, each delegate weighing the complexities of the situation. The session's conclusion was no closer to resolution. The council decided to take a temporary pause to allow for further deliberations. As the delegates filed out, the air was thick with unresolved tension and uncertainty. Leo left the chamber, his thoughts a whirlwind of anxiety and determination. The city outside, still aglow with its usual brilliance, seemed indifferent to the personal and political storm that had just erupted within its walls. He knew that the path ahead was fraught with challenges, but he was determined to find a way to bridge the divide and turn this crisis into an opportunity for deeper understanding, as the first stars began to appear in the twilight sky. Leo prepared himself for the next steps in a journey that would test both his resolve and his capacity for empathy. The Galactic Council chamber was a nexus of tension and intrigue. The grand space, usually a beacon of diplomacy, had become an arena for an unprecedented crisis. With representatives from countless worlds seated in a semicircle, the chamber's atmosphere was electric, charged with the gravity of the situation. Dr. Leo Armstrong took his place beside Liranavia, his composure masking an inner turmoil. The hall's holographic projections flickered with data, displaying the intricate web of RNA reproductive processes and the potential ramifications of this unique pregnancy. The visuals were intended to inform, but they did little to allay the growing unease among the delegates. The council president, an ethereal being with a spectral visage, called the session to order. We reconvene to address the complex implications of the recent events involving Ambassador Liranavia and Dr. Leo Armstrong, he began, his voice echoing with an authority that commanded attention. Liranavia stepped forward, her aura dimmed by the gravity of the moment. The usually serene Aranai scales now displayed a deep, reflective indigo. Esteemed delegates, she began, her voice resonating with a blend of dignity and weariness, this situation is a profound occurrence in Aranai tradition. The biological process triggered by our handshake is a rare phenomenon, signifying an extraordinary level of trust between our species. The delegates listened intently, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. The Vortari representative, a being of crystalline form, was the first to speak. This event defies our understanding of interspecies interactions. What are the implications for both Aranai and human genetics? Will this affect the stability of our intergalactic relations? Leo stood and addressed the council, his voice steady despite the intensity of the scrutiny. The process is indeed complex and unprecedented, but it also represents an opportunity for unprecedented unity. The Aranai view this as a sacred bond, and it should be seen as such. Rather than focusing solely on potential complications, we must consider the broader implications of fostering deeper understanding between our species. The Nixian delegate, a being of shimmering shadows, leaned forward with empathetic concern. Dr. Armstrong makes a valid point. This situation could either be a catalyst for division or an avenue for unity. We must navigate these waters with sensitivity and open minds. The debate continued with a flurry of questions and concerns. Some representatives worried about the biological risks and the implications for their own species, while others saw the pregnancy as a symbol of potential new beginnings. The council chamber was a cacophony of voices, each adding to the intricate tapestry of the discussion. At the heart of the debate was Leo's plea for understanding. He spoke of the personal and cultural significance of the pregnancy, urging the council to consider it as a bridge rather than a barrier. His words carried the weight of genuine conviction, drawing a reaction from the delegates that was both measured and contemplative. As the debate reached a fever pitch, Liranavia's aide approached Leo with a data pad. The aide's expression was unreadable, but the urgency was clear. Leo glanced at the pad, which displayed a new set of simulations and cultural analyses provided by Aranai scholars. The data suggested that the pregnancy could be harmonized with existing diplomatic frameworks. With careful adjustments to accommodate both species' needs, Leo presented this new information to the council, his voice imbued with a renewed sense of hope. These findings offer a path forward. By integrating Aranai cultural practices with human diplomatic protocols, we can create a framework that respects both our traditions and addresses the concerns raised. The council president reviewed the data with a thoughtful expression. This is a significant development. We must consider how this framework will impact interspecies relations in the long term. With the introduction of this new perspective, the council's tone shifted. The delegates began to explore the potential of integrating this unique situation into existing diplomatic protocols, aiming to turn the crisis into a symbol of unity rather than division. As the session drew to a close, the Council decided to implement a temporary framework that would allow for further observation and adjustment. This would include collaborative efforts between Aranai and human scientists, diplomats, and cultural experts to ensure that the pregnancy's implications were addressed in a way that honored both species. Leo and Liranavia left the chamber, the weight of the decision still heavy but tempered by a glimmer of optimism. The path forward was fraught with challenges, but the decision to integrate their unique situation into a new diplomatic framework offered a beacon of hope. As they stepped out into the twilight of New Earth City, the stars above seemed to shimmer with a new promise. The journey ahead was uncertain, but Leo and Liranavia were determined to navigate it with the same spirit of collaboration that had brought them this far. The crisis had sparked a moment of clarity, and with it, a chance to forge a new era of interspecies understanding. For Mini, write Chapter 4, maximum 700 word, in an intriguing writing style. ChatGPT, Chapter 4, A New Beginning. The dawn over New Earth City was a canvas of muted golds and silvers, painting the skyline with a hopeful hue. The previous days had been a whirlwind of diplomatic maneuvers and cultural adjustments, but now a fragile calm settled over the city. The Galactic Council had reached a decision, and the path forward was beginning to take shape. Dr. Leo Armstrong stood by his apartment's floor-to-ceiling windows, the morning light catching the weary lines on his face. His thoughts drifted back to the tumultuous sessions of the Council and the whirlwind of public opinion that had ensued. But today was different. Today, there was a sense of resolution, a tentative peace. A gentle chime interrupted his reverie. It was Liranavia, her message brief but clear, meeting at the Council chamber. The new framework is ready for discussion. At the heart of the debate was Leo's plea for understanding. He spoke of the personal and cultural significance of the pregnancy, urging the Council to consider it as a bridge rather than a barrier. His words carried the weight of genuine conviction, drawing a reaction from the delegates that was both measured and contemplative. As the debate reached a fever pitch, Liranavia's aide approached Leo with a data pad. The aide's expression was unreadable, but the urgency was clear. Leo glanced at the pad, which displayed a new set of simulations and cultural analyses provided by Aranai scholars. The data suggested that the pregnancy could be harmonized with existing diplomatic frameworks. With careful adjustments to accommodate both species' needs, Leo presented this new information to the Council, his voice imbued with a renewed sense of hope. These findings offer a path forward. By integrating Aranai cultural practices with human diplomatic protocols, we can create a framework that respects both our traditions and addresses the concerns raised. The Council President reviewed the data with a thoughtful expression. This is a significant development. We must consider how this framework will impact interspecies relations in the long term. With the introduction of this new perspective, the Council's tone shifted. The delegates began to explore the potential of integrating this unique situation into existing diplomatic protocols, aiming to turn the crisis into a symbol of unity rather than division. Leo made his way to the Galactic Council headquarters, where the air buzzed with a cautious optimism. The chamber, once a battleground of conflicting opinions, now seemed to radiate a sense of purpose. Representatives from various species had gathered, their faces reflecting the anticipation of a pivotal moment. Liranavia awaited him at the entrance. Her scales, now a soothing shade of azure, signaled her own sense of calm. She offered Leo a small, encouraging smile. "We are on the verge of something significant," she said, her voice carrying a blend of hope and determination. As they entered the chamber, Leo noticed that the usual formality of the Council was tempered by a more collaborative atmosphere. The holographic displays that had once been a source of tension now depicted a detailed framework for integrating Aranai and human practices. The Council President began the session with a gravitas that marked the importance of the day. "Today, we finalize the integration framework for the unique diplomatic and cultural event involving Ambassador Liranavia and Dr. Leo Armstrong. This framework represents our commitment to understanding and cooperation." The display lit up with the new framework, a harmonious blend of Aranai customs and human diplomatic protocols designed to respect both cultures. It included provisions for regular interspecies dialogues, joint cultural exchanges, and a shared approach to the child's upbringing, one that would honor both heritage and innovation. As the representatives reviewed the framework, their reactions ranged from cautious approval to enthusiastic support. The debate, once a cacophony of conflicting voices, was now a symphony of constructive discussion. The framework's emphasis on mutual respect and collaboration resonated with the delegates, offering a way forward that balanced tradition and progress. Leo took the floor, his voice steady and earnest. This framework is not just a set of guidelines, it is a testament to our collective commitment to a future where our differences become strengths. It is a chance to build a legacy of understanding and cooperation. Liranavia joined him, her presence a calming force. We stand on the threshold of a new era. Our child, though a symbol of this unique bond, will also represent the potential for a future where interspecies relations are not merely tolerated but celebrated. The Council's decision was met with a unanimous vote of approval. The framework was adopted, and the representatives extended their congratulations, acknowledging the significance of the moment. The atmosphere in the chamber was one of relief and anticipation, as if the very air had been lightened by the decision. As the session concluded, Leo and Liranavia stepped outside into the city's vibrant pulse. The streets, once fraught with the tension of the past days, now felt alive with a new energy. The public's perception had begun to shift, with more voices supporting the initiative and celebrating the unique opportunity it represented. Leo and Liranavia walked side by side, their conversation a blend of practicalities and dreams. They spoke of future cultural exchanges, joint projects, and the eventual arrival of their child, each discussion a step towards their new reality. As evening approached, the city's lights twinkled like stars, casting a warm glow over the streets. Leo and Liranavia found themselves at a quiet park, the serene environment a stark contrast to the recent tumult. They paused to watch the sky, the stars shimmering with the promise of a new beginning. Liranavia turned to Leo, her expression one of quiet contentment. "We have done something remarkable," she said softly. Leo nodded, his heart full. "Yes, we have. And this is just the beginning. The path ahead will have its challenges, but it is paved with the possibility of something truly extraordinary." The city continued to hum with life around them, but for Leo and Liranavia, the world had transformed into a place of hopeful beginnings and shared dreams. As they looked out over the horizon, they knew that their journey was far from over, but it was one they would navigate together, united by a vision of unity and understanding. The future was unwritten, but with each step they took, they forged a path toward a new era, one where the boundaries between species were not just crossed but embraced, creating a legacy that would echo through the stars.